Okay, here I go live. I think I'm live. Let's see. I don't know if I am. Okay. So let me know if you do see me, and if this is working out. So if not, I will try again. So here we go. I love technology. And you know what? I'm being vain that I need to use my reading glasses because I can't tell if I'm live or not. Here we go. All right. All right, I'm live. So I wanted to check in with everybody. It's been quite, I don't know. How's it been for you? For me, it's been an up and down kind of roller coaster of stuff happening. Some great family stuff and then some hard family stuff. One of my family members got COVID really badly, even though they were, I don't know, vaccinated like 4 times. And, you know, there was that horrible bombing in Moscow that took the life of the renowned journalist Daria Dugin. And that terrorist act was horrendous, and yet the Western media doesn't really cover it. And if they do, they try to vilify or whatever her father, Alexander Dugin. So there you have it. It's the Western narrative clinging to the fact that Ukraine is somehow good and Russia bad, and they're doing it at the cost of so much. So I just posted an article, and I'm going to have to put my glasses on. Sorry, because I got to read something. But it says in the article, and it's by someone whom I didn't know before. So I'm kind of interested in this particular writer. His name is Ramsey Mardini, and he wrote an article talking, really dissecting the proxy war that the U.S. is fighting against Russia using Ukraine. He said, in effect, the American public has been bamboozled into supporting a costly and risky proxy war against Russia. And anyway, the article is there. I'm going to share it, retweet it again. It's very interesting read. Although I would say that I don't even know how much public support there is. I've seen some of the Ukrainian flags disappear. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things. One thing I wanted to talk about was just the Twitter verse kind of vitriol that I've been seeing. I was really shocked by something. Benjamin Norton is someone who I followed his work because he knows a lot about South America and some of the stuff happening there. And, I didn't always like his takes, but I followed his work. He's considered a leftist journalist. And I was just shocked that he chose the day of the funeral Alexander Dugin was attending for his daughter, who was blown up in an assassination in Moscow, Daria, at the age of 29. He chose that day to go after Alexander Dugin, saying he aligned himself with fascists, when in actuality, Alexander Dugin, and I don't agree with much of his politics, perhaps, but he was very anti-fascist. And there's video after video and after writing talking about him being anti-fascist. And that said, he was hearkening back to some prior thing that Alexander Dugin had said. And again, life is long, and people change their views and adjust. And I just thought it was really, really craven. And then also Bellingcat was making really gross with their little NAFO trolls. Ugh, they're just creepy, and saying terrible things about a terrorist act that happened. I mean, it was an assassination, and a young woman died who was very accomplished at her young age. And I don't care if your politics don't agree with her. I mean, it was horrendous. And if that had happened in the US, can you imagine? It would be on the ticker tape constantly right now on CNN and NBC and CBS. But instead, they just demonize and dehumanize. It's super disappointing to see the Russophobia and the continuation of hate. And I sent out a tweet that was very, strong against Ben Norton, and I stand by that tweet. However, I sent another tweet yesterday. In fact, there were 3 I had to delete. I was a mess yesterday in the sense that I just have had enough of people being so awful on Twitter. And I think I just hit my limit, right? But we just And I posted something that said, I'm seeing a lot of humans, but not a lot of humanity. And I really like that quote because I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm just feeling like we're getting desensitized to the horrendous violence around us. And then the fact that the elites are throwing us crumbs and we're supposed to rejoice and crow and be happy, like they're shoving this $10,000 relief student loan package down. Well, you know what? Joe Biden made a promise he was going to eliminate all student debt if he were elected. He made that promise several times, not once, not twice, but more than 5, more than 10. And he didn't stand by it. And $10,000 doesn't even cover interest for most people's loans. Not only that, but he was responsible for putting in the law that if people filed bankruptcy for student debt, medical debt, whatever, that student debt couldn't be applied. Yes, Biden was behind that law. So it's like he giveth and he taketh away, right? Anyway, that's my little rant on that. I'm not going to be grateful for breadcrumbs, and neither should you. You should demand more. And I think that that will become clear, you know. And what also was really transparent was the timing. Of course, it's right before the midterms, which are in October. The primaries just happened, and it's just this on the knee bid for some votes and to look like a hero when he's not. And then also there's a lot of disinformation. Like they said they were cutting child poverty in half. Child poverty is up to 41%. They are not cutting in half with this inflation package that they passed. Most everything that had to do that was to help working families has been eliminated, including a universal tax cut that would have helped, or excuse me, a tax benefit that would have helped with universal child care. Why are we this wealthy, developed country that still doesn't have proper education and childcare for our workers? Why do we still not have proper medical care? And I'm going to share something really personal with you. And that is, I just had to go to the physician for something, and there's a medication that I need to take for something to do with the heart and whatever. It's $500 a month, and I told my doctor I can't do that. I can't afford that. And there's no alternative. There are people right now that need medications that can't afford them. So you go without. And this is the reality that the US is living in. Meanwhile, yesterday, Biden signed off without citizen consent because, Biden's not big on consent, right? $3 billion more to Ukraine. $3 billion. So what are we at? I think 60 billion combined with NATO and US, because there's the 57 billion that was promised in weapons, and then there's aid packages. I don't know if someone can sit down and let's just do an accounting, because no one else is, and we're getting close to $1 trillion now. And by the way, it's really something that Biden keeps making these speeches about how Ukrainians need pocket money. Meanwhile, US citizens are suffering and clamoring. And so he's like, oh, here's $10,000 off student debt. Here's a breadcrumb. Now go eat your bread. It's stale and it's little, and no, it's not real. So yeah. So if you want to accept the breadcrumbs, you go ahead. But the Democrats are thinking that this and promising to codify Roe versus Wade is going to get them elected in the fall. And I think they have a big awakening coming in midterms. And I think down deep, they know it, right? There's a lot of scrambling. There's a lot of fear, and there should be. Another thing that just came to my attention today was in Bolivia, miners were surrounding Evo Morales to protect him because there's been, whispers of another coup attempt. Now Morales is the socialist president of Bolivia, and he has been very protective of the lithium mines because lithium, goes in those little batteries and a lot of our electronics. And if you remember, harken back to one of Elon Musk's famous tweets that he said was a joke, but it hit a nerve. He said, we can coup whoever we want, because basically the US allegedly did the coup, CIA backed, when they couped Bolivia the first time. So the workers, the miners, are protecting their president because he's all about workers' rights. He's also indigenous and to Bolivia, and the U.S. government wants that lithium, and so European countries. So we'll see how that all transpires and how that all plays out. But I think we can all agree that the days of Western hegemony, this British colonialism, the American imperialism, it's coming to an end. It's been exposed, and we have a new kind of global multipolar world that's emerging, that are creating analysis like the alliances like the BRICS, that are going to create a different reality. And hopefully the leaders in the West will wake up, or we'll get different leaders that are more amenable to creating and being partnerships, and not incentive, being so insistent on war, and weaponry being so incentivized by the dollar, right? Because let's face it, if as long as there's money to manufacture weapons, that's the incentive for war. So how do we stop that? What is the answer? That is the question. What is the answer to demonetize and to make it so that peace is more valuable than war? Now, you think it would be intuitive. You think that we wouldn't want the destruction of our world. We wouldn't want human death. We wouldn't want destruction of infrastructures. But apparently, in the Western culture right now, war seems to be the answer. So we'll see what the future will bring. But, as the U.S. continues to not be diplomatic and not seek inroads, to diplomacy regarding other sovereign nations, like, for instance, Ukraine, pulling aid that should be going to Afghanistan, right? So that the result would be millions of people dying, but pulling the aid nevertheless, creating humanitarian crisis, continuing these embargoes on Cuba, continuing sanctions on other countries that we don't like or consider not friendly, that cause harm to the working people in those countries. At some point, that has to end. And there needs to be a different vision created. So all this nonsense that Biden said about healing the soul of America, I don't know. Do you feel healed? I don't. Anyway, I'm having some coffee. My cup says strong vibes, calm mind, or maybe calm vibes, strong mind. I don't know. So I was talking to my brother recently about technology, and he was we were making jokes that technology is getting ahead of us a bit. As you get older, like, technology gets a little dicier as you're trying to learn it, right? And this story is kind of funny, so I'm going to end on this story kind of on a lighthearted note, but it's kind of embarrassing, but it happened. I was in an airport. I had to travel, and I was looking for my car, and I didn't tell my daughter this right away because I was so embarrassed. But for 4 hours, I was looking for my car, and because it was a vast parking garage, I had written down where I had parked it, right? But my phone was dead. So it was kind of a combination of a lot of things happening. I exaggerate. It was 3.5 hours I was looking for the car. Okay, it's 3.5 hours. So, and then I finally found one of those security cop guys. He was a police officer that and he helped me find my car. Unfortunately, someone else that was there was looking for their car, but their car was stolen. My car wasn't. I knew that I had just lost it. And anyway, hey, Little Bear, my cats always interrupt my live streams. Anyway, that was my cat. Little Bear. Okay. So I'm trying to tell a story, Little Bear. Okay. So anyway, I'm looking around. It's 95 degrees this particular day as I'm walking with my suitcase and all my stuff and my laptop, trying to find my car. And my brother was joking, you know what? You should just contact the Biden campaign or U.S. intelligence, because they always know where your car is. But anyway, so I ran into this 20-something, and she says, "Oh, did you drop a pin on your location?" Now, you have to understand, I didn't know that technology. And anyway, to me, it sounded like, to us, like older folks, like when you say stuff like dropping a pin to your location, what does that mean? But apparently I didn't. So I just looked at her and I said, a pin? Like I took her literally and she goes, no, on your phone. Like, did you drop a pin to your location where your car is? And I'm like, no. So anyway, didn't know what she meant. She looked at me like, oh, like, okay. Anyway, so she went to, hadn't explained it to me. But then, then if I have pinned to my location, everybody knows where I am, right? Not that anyone cares. So anyway, eventually I found my car. It was fine. And I made it out. But it was good to see him. My brother performed in the Pacific Northwest, some of his comedy routine. He was hilarious. He had a full packed theaters, and it was good to see people laughing and out seeing comedy and to think about something besides, geopolitics, which is, and all the hardship that all of us are dealing with. So anyway, so yesterday I put out a tweet and I said, hey, I'm sorry if I'm kind of been flame throwing or a little bit, harsh lately, but I really am just fed up. I'm fed up with the Russophobia. I'm fed up with people canceling, people. And, Fiorella did a great live stream recently with Pasta, and she talked about the Caleb Maupin situation. And I've had only positive and professional interactions with Caleb. I never, I don't, he's I consider him a friend. I mean, I've talked with him or whatever. And he's now been, there was an article that came out accusing him of misconduct and such. And I talked to some of the people on the executive committee. But the weird thing about that whole thing was I was supposed to speak in Chicago, and 2 nights before I went to speak at midnight, somebody called me, my time, trying to get me not to go, and didn't say really why, but just it was bizarre. But anyway, and I didn't know like what the end game was, but apparently they wanted to not have the conference in Chicago for CPI, and they wanted me not to speak. And so then that made me look at that more critically. I'm never going to defend somebody who's engaged in sexual misconduct if it's been abuse of power or harmed anyone. I'm never going to do that. But I do want it looked at carefully. And it just seemed like he instantly just was canceled, and then CPI dissolved. And now I'm not a member of that organization, but it was anti-imperialist. And any conversation I had was simply revolving around geopolitics and anti-imperialism and, and kind of their communist ideals. I'm not politically affiliated. I just have chosen not to be at this point. I was a Democrat for a long time, and we all saw how that turned out. And I'm sort of politically homeless, like I think a lot of people are, that are upset, be it right or left, with and I don't even know if there's a division really with right or left, because basically what's happening is the elites are just screwing the working class. So you can call yourself Republican, Libertarian, or Democrat, or independent, or whatever you want to call yourself. But if you're not making over $500,000 or $1 million a year, you're not part of their big club. So, and I just think that back to the CPI situation, I was really honored to get their award. Whatever happened with their leadership and whatever's going on, I hope they're able to sort it out. And, another thing came up though, and I want to kind of hit this head on because I really have questions about this, and I'm not going to give an opinion because I really don't know. And that is about sex work versus sexual human trafficking. Like on one hand, you have a faction of people that say you should support sex workers. Sex work is work. And then you have another faction that says, well, it is strife, because I worked as an advocate for domestic violence. It's strife with sexual human trafficking and preys on very young women. So I guess I have mixed feelings about that. And, I have to understand my age. I'm a woman of a certain age. I'm also coming from a Catholic background, and I also have that kind of baggage there. And I also, although I'm not practicing Catholic now, obviously, but I'm, I don't know what you call me, and I'm spiritual, and I'm kind of have an Irish background as well, and other things. And I guess, for me, all of that stuff is kind of distant because I don't engage with people that are really involved with it. But people that I have talked to that survived human sexual trafficking talked about how horrific it was and how difficult it was to get out, and strife with drugs and strike with violence, and even kind of using intimate partner violence as a tool to coerce and command. But then you have other people who stand by, and I have known people who did sex work and bought a house and lived their life and paid taxes. So I really have a lot of questions about it, and I don't have an opinion. I absolutely don't, because I don't know enough about really the minutia of it. But I would say that I tend to lean towards the exploitation and the sexual human trafficking that I've seen. And, maybe it's not even an either or issue, but it's a nuanced discussion, right? And we don't have many of those. So anyway, August was a wild month, ending with the Democrats kind of throwing a Hail Mary, as they would say in football, to try to get those votes for the primary by throwing that crumb of 10,000. And maybe they'll throw a couple more crumbs before the midterms. But, make some noise. Let them know you're upset, and because this isn't right that so few people hold so much of American working resources. And it's particularly awful that billions of dollars are being spent to enrich the military industrial complex. So that's it. That's my check-in. And I just wanted to say hello to everyone. Please check out my podcast, The Politics of Survival. It gets heavily suppressed, but what can you do? It's INN, Independent News Network, helps a lot. They engineer for free and volunteer and help me, because I definitely could not do that. Jesse Jett did the theme song, and he has his own show on Tuesday nights, every other Tuesday night with Indy. And that's a good show to check out. Reef has his own show with Colin that's on Wednesdays that kind of goes over the news. And then, of course, you got Savvy Sabs. You got so many talented people in the space. She's not part of INN. She's part of Black Revolutionary Network and but lift up those independent content creators, because they're doing amazing work. And of course, Misty Winston is an infatigable voice for Julian Assange, who is still sitting in Belmarsh, about to be extradited to the US on espionage charges, even though he's an Australian. And he is a journalist and a publisher, and he should not be persecuted for publishing war crimes of the empire, which is essentially what they're trying to get him on. So you have a lot of people to follow and a lot of things to check out. In the meantime, take care of yourself and have a good August, and let's ease into September, shall we?